I couldn't help but notice that you didn't sign the governor's pledge this week.
No.
You don't want to do that right here? We could make news, actually?
No, probably not.
Okay. What's the problem with no tax increases? You got a problem with no tax increases?
No. Of course, what that is, as you know, Evan, it's a political stunt, and people are tired of political stunts. If that pledge, I think maybe you all are the ones who reported on this, if it had been in place in the last legislative session, where we cut $5.4 billion from public ed, where we cut almost $20 billion from our state budget overall, it would have required that we cut even deeper. Another $11 billion worth of cuts would have had to go into place under a pledge like that. And Texans are weary. They are weary of the impacts of these decisions on their lives, and they want to see us representing them. My job is to represent the citizens of Senate District 10.
Right.
And when the governor stands up and does things like that, it really is, to me, proof positive that his time on the presidential campaign trail meant that he really wasn't paying attention to what's going on here in Texas and how unhappy people are with the decisions that were made in that last
session. Do you think
session.
the governor's position on no new taxes and no tax increases is out of sync with the state?
I do think it's out of sync. What I think is out of sync about it is that embedded in that is the inability, the way that pledge was written, the inability to have a conversation about where we are as a state and to have a comprehensive look at our revenue and taxing system here. One of the things that Senator Ellis has admirably been asking for in the last couple of legislative sessions is a sunset review of all of our tax exemptions that we offer as a state. And when we're talking about making these very difficult decisions where people's classroom sizes are going to have to change because of cuts to public ed, programs for disabled children are being cut because of cuts to public ed and health and human services. Women are losing their access to health care. Seniors are losing their access to health care and prescription drugs. All of these impacts, of course, have to be weighed in a way that makes sure that we look at other things as well. And the Democrats last session, as you know, offered some solutions that would have had different outcomes than the ones that we saw. And some of those were solutions that said, let's look at a particular exemption that's in place right now, where we've lost, we know, since 2004, now about $8.5 billion to one exemption alone. Is that really still in the best interest?
The one specifically you're talking about is?
The high-cost gas well exemption. And the Legislative Budget Board invited us to really relook at that and said, you know, way back when, in the 1990s, when you all put that in place, it had the word temporary on it because it was meant to be temporary.
Right.
It was meant to stimulate that and to get it moving. And of course it's moving, and thank God it's moving. It's a very important part of our economy. But it's always important when we're giving exemptions to large corporate interests that we ask the question, but for this particular exemption, would this activity still occur? When I was on the City Council in Fort Worth, I chaired the Economic Development Committee for 8 years, and I was very, very active in making sure that if we were going to give tax dollars to create an incentive for development, we were doing it in a way that was very, very smart, and that at the end of the day was going to realize a tremendous revenue stream for us, and that at the point at which we no longer needed to have that incentive in place, to have that revenue stream in place, then it needed to come to an end.
Do you think the oil and gas business would
haven't done that?
Do you think the oil and gas business would agree that they've played this out sufficiently that they no longer need the exemption?
I think that's just Pollyannish to say that they're going to come and agree that that's the case. But I will tell you that I have a number of constituents who are in this industry, and privately some of them have said to me, we don't need that exemption. It still literally, Evan, on the books says
right.
Temporary tax exemption on it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that we must sunset our exemptions so that we're forced to come back, just like we do as we review all of our agencies and the way that they function. We're forced to come back and review them and ask, does this still make sense? Especially if we're making decisions where people are losing incredibly important services.